What would possess a daughter to steal from her own father? All right, so I got my notes here, and all right, I'm ready to get started. So my apologies for the video, but I don't have expensive camera equipment, and hopefully maybe one day I can buy some. Anyway, um, so this is my focused Bible study on the Old Testament reading for day 15 of my Bible reading journey. Anyway, so we start in Genesis 31, right? We've got two key events that happen in Genesis 31. One of the key events is that now Jacob has fled from his father-in-law Laban with his family. One of the things that I've learned from Jacob's experience is this, that there is a time in our lives where we need to endure in the struggle and not just run away from our problems, right? Not run away from the difficulties. But there is a time where we need to stand and endure in the struggle. And then there's also a time when, enough's enough. We've done all that we can, and then it's time to move on. But the one thing that I've learned here in this situation is that regardless of whether you stand and endure the struggle or whether you've done everything that you can possibly, and now it's time to move on, it's gotten to the point where now it's time to move on, God is with us. God is with us, just like he was with Jacob. Now, I think that Jacob pretty much said it best himself, right? In verse 42, he says, "If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night." Now, this is obviously when he was addressing Laban, but notice that he said that God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands. Listen, when we are going through our struggles, and we don't think that anybody else knows what we're going through, nobody else sees the injustice being done to us, God sees it. God is right there. And just like Jacob said, God saw my affliction. Nobody else saw it. But the other key event that happened in Genesis 31 is that Rachel steals the household gods from her father Laban. Now, when I was doing my research and studying the scriptures, the household gods represented a number of different things. They're called the teraphim. And when I started to think about why would Rachel steal the household gods from her father Laban, I'm thinking that the reason why she did that is because, listen, now she's in a situation where she's actually fleeing from her father and doesn't know what the future holds. And so she grabbed the household gods because the belief was that whoever has the household gods, that those household gods possess the power to provide prosperity to the family. And so I'm thinking that that's probably the major reason why she stole the household gods. But here's the thing, as a father myself, right? I have two daughters, and this is the first thing that popped into my mind. What would possess a daughter to steal from her own father? I've spoken to a young lady before in the past, and she basically said that. She basically said that I steal from her father because I steal what is owed to me. So from my own personal experience, from what I read from scripture, this is something that I understand. This is a belief that I have, and that is this. When a girl is born into this world, her first experience with God comes through the relationship that she has with her father. I mean, it's that powerful. It's very deep, it's very powerful, but it's also very volatile. God has placed a responsibility on us men to love and respect and nurture our daughters. And this is not what Laban did when we read the story here. When Jacob met Rachel, he fell in love with her. He wanted to marry her. And I'm pretty sure that Rachel felt exactly the same way. So he did what every respectable man does, right? He will go and ask the father for his daughter's hand in marriage. And Laban, being the person that he is, the opportunist that he is, tricked Jacob. And so said, all right, fine, you will have to work with me for 7 years. And when that time is up, I'll give you my daughter's hand in marriage. But instead, what he did is he gave his firstborn daughter to Jacob as a bride. Now, listen, I'm pretty sure Rachel was not okay with that. I'm pretty sure that she felt disrespected. I'm pretty sure that she felt used. I'm pretty sure that she felt hurt by the whole thing. And this is what Laban has done to his daughter. And you know what sucks about this whole situation is that there are so many men today that treat their daughters exactly the same way. And listen, God has placed that responsibility on us to treat our daughters with love, respect, and nurture. And you and I are both going to have to respond. You and I are both going to be accountable to God for what we've done. So I'm talking now to the gentleman that may have not a very good relationship with his daughter. That deep, powerful relationship is still present. And even though it's not going to be easy to reestablish peace with your daughter, you have to keep trying until the day that you die. Yes, that's all I got to say. Anyway, this is going to bring us now to chapter 32, right? Now, listen, Jacob finishes establishing peace with Laban. And it's important to understand that he was able to have that peace with Laban because God intervened in that situation. And so it is with us. So it is with the man of God. We can have peace in our lives when God intervenes. And it may not be easy, may not come in the way that you expect it or in the way that you want it, but learning from Jacob's life, there can be peace when God intervenes. The other thing that happens here in chapter 32 is that now Jacob has to go ahead and face his past. And this is something that us men can relate to. Listen, sooner or later, you and I are going to have to face the sins of the past. You and I are going to have to face the consequences of the mistakes that we've done in the past. But I'm sure that Jacob understood something. I'm thinking that Jacob understood something as something that you and I can learn from Jacob's life. And that is that if God can intervene and establish peace with his father-in-law Laban, he can also establish peace with his brother Esau. His brother Esau had every reason to kill Jacob and wipe him out, right? Let's just face it. It would be a smart idea for Esau to go ahead and wipe out Jacob because then Esau becomes the sole heir of his father's estate, right? So there's a lot that we can learn from Jacob's prayer. And this is how you know that Jacob is a changed man. All right, now look. The first thing he says in his prayer is that he says, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac." Now listen, man, this is not some ceremonial prayer, man. He knows that his last resort, he knows a desperate situation. He's facing a life and death situation, something that many of us men don't face nowadays, okay? But he is facing a life and death situation. And this is a desperate cry. This is a desperate plea to God, which shows that Jacob has total dependency on God. And that's where each and every one of us men of God need to be and need to acknowledge that we have and we need this total dependency on God. But he also gives God credit for his success. I mean, listen to what he says in his prayer. He says, "For with only my staff, I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps." So Jacob realizes that this is not something that he's done from his own power. This is not something that he's, orchestrated, or he's so intelligent that he's become this successful man. He understands that all of this came from God. And this is where I personally resonate with Jacob, that resonates with me in regards to Jacob. Because when I look at my life, I feel like I'm a prosperous man, because the things that are valued the most are things you can't buy with money. I have a wonderful marriage. I have a wonderful relationship with my children, my son, my two daughters. I have a great job. So, I'm prosperous in that monetary aspect. But the things I value the most in my life can't be bought with money. You can't have money. My health is good too. I mean, you can't buy that with money. Anyway, so he understands that his success is God's doing, not his doing. And that's where us men of God need to acknowledge and understand. Here's the other thing, is that Jacob acknowledges that he's wrong. Dude, there are so many guys, many have been my friends, right, that are so full of it. I mean, and they believe their own bull. And they're constantly trying to live up to something that they're not, or trying to make up for something that they wish they were. Crazy. Jacob understands and that he's done wrong. And us men of God, we don't have a problem admitting when we're wrong. Because when we don't admit that we're wrong, we've got a couple of problems. Number one, God can't work with us. If we're the type of people, if we're the type of person, if we're the type of man that will never apologize, that will never admit when we're wrong and things like that, God just can't work with somebody like that. But the other thing also is that there's no growth. I mean, look at some of the most successful men and women, the billionaires and millionaires out in the world. They are successful not only because of whatever their education or their intellect and stuff like that, but they also learn from their past mistakes. Better than that, they learn from other people's past mistakes, and obviously apply that to their lives. And so we need to also learn that from Jacob, right? Look what it says in this prayer. Jacob says, "I'm not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant." I mean, why would Jacob say such a thing? Because he knows. He acknowledges the fact that he's wrong, or he was wrong, right? But here's the other thing that I learned from Jacob's prayer, and that is this, right? Is that he was focused on God's deliverance rather than God's destruction. That's the wrong motive, right? Instead of him praying to God and saying, "God, please wipe out Esau, cast out Esau from my life." Instead of doing any of that stuff, look at what he says. He says, "Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him." He doesn't wish for Esau's destruction or Esau's demise. I mean, I think that this is one of the reasons why Jacob became one of the patriarchs of our faith, because he humbled himself and he understood the deliverance of God, right? So when I sit there and I look at Jacob's prayer, I learn three things. There are three principles that I took out of this, and that is that number one, that my life is totally dependent on God, that my success is totally because God is with me. The second thing that I learned is that there is deliverance when I admit that I'm wrong. Right? And then the third thing is that I understand my weaknesses, but I understand also God's greatness. Well, listen, my friend, I hope that this little reflection, this little Bible study was helpful to you. God bless you, and I hope to see you at the next video.